Welcome to Implicating the Real. My name is Michael. I'm joined by my friend Joe. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm a little tired, which is apropos for this episode, I think.
I've always wanted somebody to wave on the podcast because I just think it's hilarious. We're also joined by our friend Liana. Liana, how are you?
Great.
Good. Glad everybody could be here. We're talking Seth Speaks, Chapter 8. And it's subtitled Sleep, Dreams, and Consciousness.
Yeah.
What do we think?
2 periods of sleep, 3 hours each. I'm going to save everyone time listening to the podcast.
That was one option.
Or 5 hours main sleep and then 2 hour nap.
You can take the option of the 5 hour plus 2 nap.
5 hour, 1 nap up to 2 hours. Or for some people, he says 4 hour nap with 4 hour sleep period with 2 naps.
Yeah.
But the main concept is just smaller doses of sleep, right? That are spread out and balanced your day.
More frequent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no more than 8 hours because that
Yeah.
starts to become detrimental.
He says after 6 to 8, it's kind of diminishing returns, and over 10, it's working against you. And I've noticed that in my experience, like, how am I so tired? I slept so much.
Yeah, you slept too much, Like, you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I feel awful.
Yeah.
I slept for 12 hours.
The way I like to drive home the logic is just to take a very extreme version of it. Like, it wouldn't make sense, unless you're like a grizzly bear to sleep for 4 months and be awake for 8 months. You see how that would really separate, and later in the chapter he'll get into how it works to separate our ideas of, we're disconnected from that level of consciousness, that sleep side of consciousness, because we have it sectioned off. It's literally like day and night, and our conscious waking self doesn't have to think about it. But you can imagine if you slept for 4 months and then were awake for 8 months, in the middle of your waking period, it'd be hard for you to feel like you're psychologically close to that focus of consciousness that you were at in the middle of your sleep cycle. Whereas if you had just a little nap and that was just an hour and a half ago, it seems much easier that you're close, and you're maintaining a flexibility of consciousness.
Yeah, the flexibility thing is that's the key point, right? Because I was reading this for the first part of the chapter, and I was getting a little confused because we talked a lot about, earlier time is sort of an illusion. Why can't you just sleep for a minute and just get all your sleep in,
Oh, because time.
Because if you're going to if your consciousness going to a different dimension and doing work there, why do I even need to sleep at all in the physical realm, right? It doesn't seem like it would be necessary to have an extended period of time in which you're sleeping if your consciousness isn't there.
Yeah.
I think some of the benefit of sleep is physiological, though. Supposedly, when you sleep, there's increased cerebral spinal fluid flowing through your brain to wash all the gunk. Your body has a lower breathing rate, lower heart rate, because you're resting and recuperating, supposedly. And you can't, in the 3D, you can't rush that stuff. The other stuff, when you're out of body, you can probably rush in that timeless realm, but the stuff here, I don't think you could really.
He kind of touches on that a little bit, I think, in the middle of the chapter, where he notes the body has its own cellular consciousness that's always there, even when he says, more creative consciousness or higher consciousness leaves during sleep periods. And he also said consciousness doesn't need to sleep per se, it just needs to change its focus.
Yeah.
So, but whatever physical reality is, our consciousness is connected to it. And so part of, what it is has its own needs, I guess.
Well, and I remembered what we talked about last time too, about when you're dreaming, that dream space is allegedly running in parallel, so it's not it's a timeless zone. It's also in time, so you would need time to be functioning for consciousness at that level.
I don't know if that the parallel implies that it's
temporal.
Yeah. I think it just means you can access it. It's like there's a part of yourself that's focused in that has that level of focus happening even while you're awake. But it doesn't mean that, like there's these two streams that are just flowing at the same rate right next to each other.
Okay.
In the sense.
You ever have those dreams where like the dream takes a ridiculous, inordinate amount of time compared to when you were asleep? Like some people will sleep and they'll say they dreamed having a whole life where they got married and had a family for like 10 years. Then they wake up and it's been like 6 hours.
That's true, yeah. So I guess it's not like a one-to-one relationship.
Yeah.
He also says in certain places, like these shorter periods of sleep need to kind of be supplemented with the right sort of suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
And he hasn't really gotten into suggestion really deeply in this book, right? But I imagine he's, you just repeat a couple times like, I will fully refresh myself or something along those lines.
Sleep is good for me,
Yeah.
but not too good.
I don't know, man. Suggestion got way cooler after I found Seth. There's something to it. Hypnotism.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been in classrooms where they make like the little kids do it when they come into the classroom, and the kids love it. Yeah. Like you can see them beaming when they're just like, I am good enough. I am smart.
That's cool. Kids always make everything better.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff like that. Got any quotes right off the bat here?
I like this one. As many light snacks would actually be much better than 3 large meals a day. So short naps rather than such an extended period would also be more effective, and that's for sleep. The idea that like, I don't know if this is the trend anymore, but that was like a thing people had said for like a long time, right? Like you shouldn't eat like huge meals all the time. Yeah. You should just be like kind of grazing throughout the day.
I was on this track, a long time before I found Seth, and it made sense for its own reasons. Like I'd get like men's health magazines and stuff like that. And you get in this crazy mindset where like you want to make sure there's not a moment where your muscles are starving because then they're atrophying. But there's also not a moment where you're like getting too many calories because then you're adding fat. It's just this like very, body image hyper focused. But the idea was that like you have sort of like a gas tank, which like if you eat the right size meal, it fills the tank, keeps your muscles from atrophying because you're getting the right amount of nutrition. But if you overfill the tank, the stuff that spills over becomes fat.
Right.
And so you want to avoid that. So you're just always like, at least 6 small meals a day, but more than, their normal 3. And that's the same thing. I would go the same thing, the example of extremes. Like if you ate a week's worth of meals at once and then just like starve the rest of the time, you see how that's just totally imbalanced and that would have negative effects.
I don't know. We might be going against the grain right now, though.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are on that intermittent fasting right now,
And also 1 meal a day.
But what is like the science? Is it like that extension of life in rats? Is that what it is?
No, I think it's just weight loss as far as I know.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this isn't a weight loss chapter, obviously. It's about improving your consciousness in your life, right?
But also not burdening your body, like not taxing your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, Seth talks a lot about like how it's like beneficial for your body. Like that was like surprising to me, like how much he goes back and he's just like, but this is like really good for like your blood and like you have to get like these chemicals out of your body. And it's just like Seth is like really focused on like this is like peak health. You have to sleep correctly.
I think I joked with you last week before you read this. I'm like, it's just half the chapter. He's just like listing the benefits of this sleep schedule.
I wanted to see what you guys thought about this one because it was like kind of interesting to me too, with like the spirit like leaving and going to like the dream space or whatever. Like above that, he says about like if you sleep for too long. In many cases, 10 hours of sleep, for example, is actually disadvantageous, resulting in sluggishness both of mind and body. In this case, the spirit has simply been away from the body for too long a time, resulting in a loss of muscular flexibility.
I guess, is he implying that the spirit is necessary
for muscular flexibility?
I guess if you're just not moving, right? You're just like...
Yeah, I don't think your body is selling.
You're just like on the way of calcifying,
I guess. I feel like your body moves when you're asleep, though,
Yeah, but
not all that much.
Right.
You're not really standing and walking.
I mean, I'm in my 40s. Like, I know, like, certain days if I sleep long or just getting out of bed, things are stiff before
you get kind of creaky.
kind of warm up a little bit. Yeah.
You gotta infuse spirit into the rest.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure it's been on, I work the overnight shift. And so, like, I have more struggles than usual with, like, sleep because I'm constantly adjusting. I have, like, a weekly
Jet lag.
I have my weekly version of that. So I tend to have a night where I do sleep almost 10 hours sometimes.
And it's not a good feeling.
It's like being familiar as I am with this stuff. I'm like, oh, I was kind of pretty awake like 3 hours ago. That was the moment I should have hopped out of bed and I could have had a nap, and I didn't. I just like went back to sleep.
Should we get into that right away? That I know, like, you have a pretty interesting, like, sleep style, and you've done a lot of experimenting. I'm pointing in an audio format. Michael, like you were just saying, you have, very interesting sort of like sleep style throughout the week. And Liana, you also have been doing a lot of like different sleep stuff, right?
I mostly just follow the Seth sleep schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
Haven't you mentioned before on the podcast that like it had actually helped with some serious
time.
issues?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to get into that?
I mean, in med school, they really drilled home 8 hours of sleep. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll just do that. And I would often have to supplement with naps, power naps, 20-minute power naps, or just like a 5-minute cat nap here and there. And that kind of worked, but inevitably at like 10 p.m. or 9 p.m., I would just get dead tired to the point where I can still stay awake, but the quality of my life just like plummets and I can't really enjoy anything. If I'm going to sit on the couch and watch something with my friends, I'm probably going to start like nodding off. I can't do anything more involved than just sitting there like a vegetable. It wasn't really all that fun. And I started to just struggle to stay awake doing stuff. Eventually I told my doctor and they were like, you might have narcolepsy, maybe, just from how quickly you can like fall asleep when you're trying not to. But I didn't test positive for narcolepsy, possibly because of performance anxiety. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that.
Yeah, but like, unfortunately, the cure for that kind of narcolepsy is just to take really powerful sleeping drugs that make you sleep deeper, which I didn't want to do because I wasn't sure. I knew that some of those drugs would affect your REM cycle, and I didn't want to touch that because we don't know fully what the purpose of that is, and I don't want to mess with like a bodily function I possibly need. And then that was around the time that I discovered Seth, and I was like, okay, I don't like napping because when I would nap, I'd usually wake up feeling awful after like 2 hours and way more tired than before. But I'll try it because, as Seth says, you have to give the proper suggestions before sleep, and you have to change your beliefs about sleep in general. And my beliefs back then were naps suck. So I tried it, and I would dial down my sleep from 8 to 7 hours, and then from 7 down to 6 hours, and try to take like a 1 to 2 hour nap in the afternoon. And all my fatigue problems went away completely. So I'm still napping 8 hours. I'm still sleeping 8 hours a day total. But I got back like 3 hours of my life every day because 9 p.m. to midnight wouldn't be complete crap for me. And I would actually be able to do stuff and like enjoy my life. And I wasn't just like crippled by fatigue for like half of my leisure time after work anymore. It was excellent. I recommended it to some of my closest friends that they've tried it, and they've also said it's excellent. But it does require somewhat of a flexible schedule because we usually nap like 5 p.m. right after work, and if you're commuting home, you're just...
Yeah, I've found that's part of the challenge in modern life, but definitely doable. You just kind of have to think about, okay, like when can I get this nap in tomorrow?
Yeah, I also think it's quite telling that in so many countries, they have the concept of a siesta. Even in Asian countries, they have like some kind of midday nap. They wouldn't do that if it weren't in some way beneficial.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have millions of people doing that.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing I was thinking, too, when you were saying that is like, I feel like it is just sort of us as a society being kind of boneheaded about it and just like not accommodate,
right?
Yeah.
Like, like I remember hearing about like, the siesta culture and just assuming that, oh, well, we figured out the scientific best way to do it, and they're obviously not doing it.
Yeah.
I haven't never like looked too deeply into like how we landed on 8 hours, and
factory culture, man.
I'm sure they like But like the scientific recommendation of 8 hours,
Oh.
do you think that's related or indirectly maybe?
So I read a little bit of outside stuff for this chapter just because it sort of piqued my interest. And I know I read one thing where somebody was citing a study that was like life expectancy, and then they grouped people based off of like how much they slept per day. Or I guess per night, because all the people in the study probably just slept in one like chunk. But they said like 7 hours in that study was like ideal. Like the people who live the longest sleep like 7 hours. And if you slept more than 8 or less than 6, your like life expectancy started like going down.
Interesting.
But that's assuming they don't get the nap.
That's assuming they don't just have like a nap in the middle, right? Because like
Right.
they might be responding like, oh, I do this much sleep at night, and then just like don't say that they like, get some other time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 might just be the cutoff where it's like really pushing the body hardcore to stay awake the other like 20-something hours.
Right.
I know working the night shift, I'm also in a union, so like there's been times where we're like fighting for like a better shift differential on the night shift. And the most, I think, foolproof argument is like, science says that night shift workers die younger.
I believe that, man.
And so like it seems not unfair to just give us a little bit more money. But, and then, of course, that was some level of concern to me personally. But where I kind of landed on, because I feel like at least 85% of my coworkers that work the night shift, they have families and other stuff going on. I have my own things going on in my life, but like most people don't have the level of discipline to say, no, this is the time where I'd normally be asleep at night. I can't be bothered. It's like they leave their phone on or they're available to pick up their kids or this or that. And I just think it's not that they're sleeping during the day. That could have some effect, but I think the majority of the negative effect on their health is that they don't have the discipline to get the quality sleep they need.
It's tough socially too. Like I'm lucky enough that most of the people that I'm spending my day-to-day with know about Seth, even if they're not doing a sleep schedule. So I just literally can tell them, no, I can't do this activity you guys want to do because I have to take my Seth nap. Can we just move it back 2 hours? And they're willing to do that. But most people, I think, in society would be like, wait, you're going to take a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day? Like, what are you, 5?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and in America especially, we've got the like time is money thing,
Yeah.
Like if you like go back not even that long ago, like some of the biggest like social thinkers of like our culture talk all the time about like you have to wake up really early, you have to like be really efficient with your time, specifically because you have to convert it into money, right? It's all about like you need to capitalize on like working as much as you can during the day, like the Puritan work ethic thing.
The irony here is that Seth is offering what he's saying, you guys aren't as efficient as you could be.
Yeah.
And he's saying even less sleep could be better. And I wish he would have stressed the suggestion a little bit more alongside in this chapter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's coming, but like...
It is in the next book, big time.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's what causes, you were talking about like people don't have the discipline, but like I think part of it too is just like we get so like overworked, because like Seth talks about that a little later in the chapter too, right? Like there's different variances of like your active engagement while you're awake as well.
Yeah.
And like we as a culture tend to insist that people are all like running 100% of the time during all their waking hours. And it's like if you overwork yourself too much, it's like then you need to, recover so much during sleep that you can't actually have the most beneficial sleep cycle, because you need to be too efficient during the day.
Yeah. And so we have these beliefs, these hardcore separations of these two states of natural states of consciousness that are just inherent to like all living beings in this world. And then we also have like this caffeine culture that goes alongside of it. Like
that's true.
We have like, along the lines of what you're saying, you have to be most efficient. So fortunately, caffeine is pretty mild as far as things go. But like what you're talking about with like getting recommended like certain sleep drugs, I think that is scary if you do at all care about like your own like consciousness hygiene, right? Like because you just don't know what the side effects are when, something is forcing you. And Seth will hint at some of those things, especially like at the end of life, or he's even talked about it like drugging the mother during birth as some negative effects. And
no, yeah, it removes like a part of human experience that otherwise we would be able to, engage with, right? Like there's that part of just like being awake but being a little bit tired and just kind of like existing in that like state of like consciousness that people like try to shoo away as quick as possible, right? Because they gotta like down their coffee really fast on the way to work.
Yeah. I mean, it's just another instance of treating the symptom and not getting to the root cause.
Right.
My partner used to rely on caffeine, and this is before we decided to try the Seth sleep schedule, but he found that she was still tired all day. Morning.
With the schedule?
No, but this was when we were still sleeping 8-hour chunks a night.
Yeah.
He'd sleep 9 sometimes. And he would rely on caffeine waking up. And I forget, he read somewhere online that caffeine might be causing the fatigue, so he quit cold turkey, and it was really brutal for like 2-3 weeks. But after that, he reported that he felt so much better without the caffeine.
Yeah.
Entirely, just living completely free of caffeine.
Yeah. What was his intake like when he was on caffeine? Was he like just a cup of coffee?
1 cup of coffee.
Yeah.
In the morning.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe like a tiny can of Coke in the afternoon.
I've always been pretty deliberate about not having a daily coffee habit. I drink tea daily, more or less, but it's generally like half the dose of caffeine. So along the same lines, it's like it's not these hardcore spikes. It's more of a gentle. And then also I've tried to never drink or take in caffeine like right after I wake up. I should feel refreshed because I just rested all night. So like why do I need to stimulate? Like, I think like we get into these habits. They're like, oh, it's morning. This is what I do in the morning. But I think when your body comes to rely on that external stimulation, then it is diminishing returns. And
It is.
pretty soon you get to a point of where you'd be more alert without the caffeine at all.
Yeah. Plus, a lot of people today suffer from anxiety, and they're slamming 3 cups a day.
Yeah. Adding some physical nervous energy to their psychological nervous energy.
No, that's 100%. Yeah. That's when I had cut out caffeine for a long time, was because of like trying to like deal with like anxiety a little bit. And like my quality of like mind was a lot better.
Yeah.
I just felt like happier a lot of the time. And like your body, yeah, it does take a couple weeks of just like, wow, I feel really tired. But like you can adjust really, really quickly to it.
Yeah.
Now I'm back on it, obviously, because I got to get to the classroom and teach kids like instantly. But
They say that tea has a less like extreme caffeine effect. It's a little gentler on your body.
I've heard that for sure. Well, and tea's like good for you in a lot of ways too.
Yeah.
Whereas coffee is just sort of like acidic.
Seth like pushes in both ways, in so many ways, and he doesn't say it in this chapter, but somewhere he says like our idea that you shouldn't have caffeine before you go to sleep is kind of erroneous too. He kind of says it can benefit stimulating our waking consciousness as we fall asleep. Do you remember?
I don't remember that saying that.
Does he say anything about eating pepperoni pizza before you go to bed?
Not specifically, but there's some other foods that make an appearance. We probably touched on the milk one already. That like,
Oh, yeah. When he drank that milk and he was like, this is all.
this is what you call milk or something.
He was like, it tastes like chalk. That's really interesting about the caffeine before sleep, though. I didn't know that, but I have heard that people with ADHD who suffer from insomnia should try having caffeine before bed, because the caffeine will elevate their dopamine levels. Because ADHD can be described by some as like an affective dopamine deficiency. So if you spike your dopamine a little bit, it can help you stop overthinking when you're laying in bed and fall asleep. So like one of my friends who was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid, she during COVID was not able to get her ADHD medication. And she was like just messed up with insomnia, was not able to sleep lying in bed for like 6 hours. And I was like, why don't you try a little bit of caffeine before bed? And she did, and helped her fall asleep.
Because a lot of their medication is kind of a stimulant, right? Like Ritalin and stuff like that.
Yes, it increases the effective levels of dopamine big time.
Interesting.
So like caffeine does it a little bit. They're all uppers and stimulants.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and he just mentions like with proper suggestion, But there's a lot of ways that people need to deal with their ability to fall asleep, and that affects this too. Like, so just like recommending something like this to a friend, like in order to wake up after 5 hours of sleep, you need to kind of be able to fall asleep pretty quickly and get 5 good quality hours of sleep. And I've been able to do that mostly or partially because like my deep dive into meditation has kind of prepared me to like have that sort of flexibility. But like without that, like I might have conflicting beliefs. I might be fighting myself in bed. I might kind of doze off a little bit, but I don't get into the full REM cycle. Like I think when I think about timing this out, a lot of times when I wake up groggy, I feel like it's because I somehow got woken up in the middle of a REM cycle. Does Seth say our REM cycles are like roughly 90 minutes? Or
No, that's what science says. And I also used to believe that. So I would always try to time my alarm so that I could sleep in increments of 90 minutes because I was like, yeah, I can't interrupt my REM cycle. But after just trying to switch my beliefs over to the Seth system, I dumped that belief and I was like, okay, I'm going to get 4 hours because I had to be up at 8 for a meeting. I'm just going to go to sleep at 4 a.m. because it's fun to stay up late. And I have not found any issue.
Yeah.
I am able to like interrupt my REM cycles and nothing happens.
That's a good point because I think like what Seth would say suggestion does have the power to do is that we could actually like give our higher self, communicate like just fit our REM cycle into this period more or less.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're variable.
Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say like they're not strictly exactly 90 minutes, give or take.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you're setting yourself a timer for 90 minutes, it's like you might be cutting, like it might have taken you a little while to get into it, you know? And then like you might be cutting yourself off if it's like an especially long, you know, one, so or something like that.
And it again, it just makes me wonder, like, how did we get to this sort of belief system? Like, where along the lines of like sleep science did the assumptions that everybody has the same length of REM cycle or every person always has the same length REM cycle? It's just silly when you think about it.
Also, 8 hours is not a multiple of 90 minutes.
Right,
so
right.
How do? What?
7.5 would be, I guess, but yeah.
But then proper sleep hygiene dictates that if you are lying in bed awake for more than 50 minutes, get out of bed, do something, and come back in. So if all the science is supposed to be believed and cohesive with each other, then we are supposed to be sleeping 7.5 hours and spending 30 minutes sleeping, but we're also literally told, do not lie in bed for 30 minutes because that's horrible sleep hygiene. So it's already contradictory.
Yeah.
Well, this is a thing I was going to bring up a little bit, but I can bring it up now, is like, a lot of this is also just all based off of like Western like sleep habits, right?
Yeah.
And like some of the stuff that I read like outside of this was I just wanted to like look at like different anthropological like information, because like other cultures don't necessarily sleep at all the same way that people like in America or in the Western world like sleep, you know? And like part of that, you know, with like being active, you know, if you've been lying awake just like being active is like much more normalized in other cultures. Like I read one thing that was talking about like apparently in the medieval European context, they had a first sleep and a second sleep. And then in the middle time, you had like a couple hours that people would like get up, get a meal, go visit their friends, just like run around at night, just like doing stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like that could add up to, you know, like shorter periods of time that could give you like, you know, 8 hours broken into like a 4-4 or something like that, you know? But like it gives you time to like be active, right? And like have that sort of like hygiene, but like in a different way. Or like there's also a lot of cultures where like you don't sleep by yourself. One of the things that characterizes Western sleep like habits as like different from a lot of other places, you have is to how like put
private
away your like we sleep. Like we sleep by ourselves. Phone, you have to put away distractions, you have to stop being by other people and like be by yourself and sleep. Whereas like in a lot of other cultures, like you'd go to a big house full of people who are sleeping. Some of them are already laying there sleeping. You lay down for a little bit and just hang out until you want to sleep. Then you sleep. You wake up for a little bit and you're just kind of awake. Other people are awake and sleeping. You go back to sleep. Maybe you get up and move and, you know, do stuff. It's like people doing stuff all around you while you're sleeping, you know?
Interesting. That makes me think of even within this culture, I think it's underreported how older people have changing sleep patterns. I think they're like a lot of times, I don't know if it's just because they're they're less active with work, being retired, that's part of it, or it's just a process of getting older. But like, I know a lot of older people will complain of like having troubles staying asleep and this and that. And I just feel like if they knew this, like they could just apply things. And I think some of them just by force or, of like trying anything that works, like ends up on something like this.
Right.
They do say that the elderly are supposed to only get, like, they should aim for 6 hours instead of 8.
Really? That checks out. I have one of my grandmothers is like 95 or something, and kind of in a nice grandma way complains about like, I can't sleep that much, like.
Yeah, my mom does the same thing where she's like, I can't sleep for over 5 hours, and I'm like, well, the Seth material says that is how long you're supposed to sleep.
I don't remember hearing that, but did he give a reason?
Not that I know of. I think they just need less sleep, but like teenagers need way more because they're still growing. So teenagers are supposed to get more than.
That makes sense. Just their bodies have more energy coming in and doing more things. Yeah.
Well, and they say a lot of your body's growth and like repair happens while you're like in an unconscious state, right? So like,
yeah.
If you're literally physically like growing your bones at whatever like accelerated rate, like you need time to do that.
Yeah, like speaking of pepperoni pizza, I just remember as a teenager, like I just like eat 2 frozen pizzas and not even feel full, and wouldn't even get fat or anything. Like it's just like when you're like a teenage boy at a certain point, like you're just a machine, like a physical.
Yeah, you're a machine for making you into a different type of being.
Yeah, so like it makes sense that you need to like have some quality sleep during that time.
Mm-hmm.
What you said did remind me of like how a lot of people, at least in America, are trying what they call biphasic sleep, which is essentially the Seth sleep schedule, and they're having a lot of luck with it.
Interesting.
Well, and that's how a lot of this stuff ends up taking hold in the culture. It has to come in a form other than, like a channeled entity recommends you do this.
You gotta have someone who's like a sleep psychologist with a doctorate who also is like, yeah, channeled entities are kind of cool, and then they like slip it into their research. Like, what if we just tried it out?
I think it happens more than we think.
I mean, that's what they say is like a lot of like the highest level like scientific people are also into like a lot more of the like spiritual like practice and stuff like that. Like, there's something about that kind of mind where people tend to be like sort of curious about, okay, I know a lot about this thing, but like, what about this other stuff?
Yeah, I think it's just a general aspect of curiosity itself. Like, but it's also a lot of those circles come with like a stigma of like, you can't talk about these ideas with these people and in this situation, Right.
You got to like mask it in academic language if you want to.
And I think like maybe some of the more toxic things that come through science are the people that are denying that spiritual side in any way. Then it comes into like these very dogmatic, hardcore beliefs in just like a materialism or something that has more of a negative impact when it's like really pushed on the culture.
Right.
You mentioned narcolepsy. I was kind of surprised that didn't just get a mention in this chapter. He mentions insomnia, but nothing like narcolepsy.
I think because insomnia is just so much more common than narcolepsy.
That's probably true.
But I don't know if we've covered it yet, but like essentially Seth does say that all disease comes from beliefs anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too, is like even we're talking about older people like just figuring out that this sort of sleep schedule works better for them. They still might be battling the belief it might not change their belief system, even if it's working for them. There's part of them that's still fighting against. It's not as efficient as it could be if they like fully embraced like some of these Sethian ideas. If you give yourself permission to buy into them a little bit, there's a lot of freedom there to like, you can let go of this belief that would work against you and you're trying to do something.
I do actually wonder if that's why the elderly supposedly need less sleep, because they do become just more open to new ideas. Yeah. And their life is less rigorously structured because they're no longer 20 and hustling at the bottom of the corporate ladder. Mm-hmm. Now they're like a little more financially stable. They can afford to just experiment with sleep, and they just have more free time. They're not like nose to the grindstone type of lifestyle anymore.
And I think life, just a long life in general, if you're paying attention to your own experience and giving it the validity it deserves, it probably does have an effect on just loosening cultural beliefs that have been given to you.
I don't know. I feel like that's the opposite of what most people say, right?
Well, I think it could go either way with different people, but
Like some people get really set into their grooves.
yeah, like some people just like calcify into their habits, but
as you age, you generally start to give fewer fucks. And that is not what society tells you. Society tells you, you know, you need to be ripped, you need to look young, your skin needs to be perfect, you got to care what everyone else thinks.
No, you pile up enough where your like acceptance becomes much more normalized to you, where you're just like, I'm just gonna be whatever I am.
Yeah.
I'm too old to worry about this.
and that's just another, giving fewer fucks is just another way of saying that like I'm gonna prioritize my own subjective experience over what's being given to me through the culture.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just more of a brief way of saying it.
Yeah.
The bumper sticker version. It's interesting, like how this chapter, so far our discussion has been, we just really internalized it and just been discussing what we read, versus normally we're like, here's a quote, let's read this, let's try to figure out what he means.
We're learning, Michael. We're getting better at podcasting.
I think this chapter is a little more straight up as far as like understanding what he's telling us.
But so we were talking about like old people and how like they might have like less restriction or like less financial restrictions to like how they can sleep. Do you think like if somebody was just like born really wealthy, do you think those people tend to like have better sleep habits too like this? Like, do you think that
I
that's
feel like a trust fund baby would just be able to sleep and wake up whenever and nap whenever they want. That's really interesting.
right?
Yeah.
Honestly, a study done on that.
I think it's the same concept. I don't know, like there's certainly other factors that a young person would have, even if they are rich, but like just the freedom to be like, I mean, right now I'm in the middle of like a 2-week off work. So like in so many ways, it just like loosens my idea of what I can and should be doing at the moment. And that is a big factor when it comes to sleep.
Yeah, I guess now that I think about it, I do experience a lot of that too, because I get like the summers off, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, I do like change my sleep schedule a lot when I'm no longer required to like get up and go to work all the time.
Yeah. Even being familiar with these ideas, I still have a fear like, oh, if I don't go to sleep by this time, this is going to fuck up my day tomorrow, you know?
Yeah.
And that still could be true, but it may not necessarily be true. Like, I don't have total confidence that like, you know, I can just like get so much sleep. But there are times, I will say, where like I'm taking my 2-hour nap before work and I'm just not falling asleep. But I learned this in my meditation too, just like, if you can't sleep, just relax.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of lay there and try to stay relaxed, and it seems to work the same way.
Seth does say that even if you don't feel like you fall asleep, that rest is still really restorative.
Yeah.
I think science says that too. There's like a lot of animals that do that, you know, where they just like rest. Like I think I remember there was like some study about like they could like do this thing where they would just like rest and like lay down, and it's like we were talking about like the chemicals and stuff that get like restored like during sleep. Like a lot of that can still happen. Like you don't have to be like in REM or whatever for that to happen. It can just like happen when you're like in a very restful, you know.
Interesting.
I'm just remembering we talked about this. I don't think it was related to the chapter, but dolphins do that hemispherical
I
sleep.
was just thinking about that.
I just learned this like a month or just a couple weeks
We were talking about it recently. Yeah,
It's so crazy. Yeah, just half their brain sleeps at one time.
that's why they're psychopaths, man. I'm telling you, because it's like them and ducks, right? And both of them are like the rapiest animals in the planet.
This is correlation. I don't know if it's causation. But yeah, I think ducks were another one, and there's more birds than just ducks, but yeah.
Couldn't be crows. They're too good. Not like ducks.
It's hard to say. But when it's ultimate efficiency, but it makes sense if you have to like either watch out for predators or like
I think they do it because they have to breathe.
they have to breathe. What's interesting too is like I always thought that your breathing is like one muscle that I'm forgetting this.
Diaphragm.
Well, the diaphragm, but like the terms where it can be both a consciously moved muscle and an unconsciously moved muscle. And I just would assume that, like, you know how babies know how to hold their breath underwater? Like, I just assume dolphins would have that down. They don't need to, like, stay awake to breathe.
Well, they have to get up to where the air is at, you know?
So they just, so like every so many minutes, they have to just swim up and take a breath.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That would screw up your sleep if you had to wake up every so often.
Every, like,
breathe.
couple minutes.
Yeah. Interesting. Guys got anything particular thing you wanted to read?
I liked on 98, this was just kind of an interesting point. Initially, your conscious life followed the light of day. Now, with artificial light, this need not be the case. There are opportunities here, then, to be gained from your technology that you are not presently taking advantage of. To sleep all day and work all night is hardly the answer. It is simply the inversion of your present habits. But it would be far more effective and efficient to divide the 24-hour period in a different way. I just thought that was like a really good point to make, like, right away. Like, that, like, look, you have, at this point in history, you have the technology to, like, make this possible. Like, we have electric lights, and that has changed fundamentally the way that people interact with sleeping, but, like, not to the way that was ever, like, the hope, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's a lesson with a lot of stuff from, you know, the Industrial Revolution, is, like, we have these wonderful, life-changing technologies that we have used in the worst ways possible.
Well, to me, this is like this overemphasize on this idea of this is natural, and therefore this is the way it has to be done for all of time, and we don't have the ability to adapt or change.
Right.
You know, like, I remember there's a big pushback against, like, it's not natural to, like, consume dairy because, you know, 1,000 years ago we didn't do that, or whatever it was. But, like, and Seth gets into this too with, like, and this is something that kind of opened my eyes. He said, like, you know, there's chemicals in our food, you know, like there's pesticides and whatever. And he's saying, like, the body can deal with this stuff. It's not this hard division between, like, you know, organic is natural and chemical is bad. You know, like, there's bad on both sides, there's good on both sides, and it helps, especially if you allow your belief system to believe that it can deal with some of these chemicals, you'll be better off.
Yeah, it's like, make use of the new things we have available to us.
Yeah. But it's just like this idea of I don't know if I explained that very well, but, like, you know, the day and the night thing is just like, oh, therefore it's natural, therefore that's the ideal forever and all time.
Right.
It's kind of silly when you think about it.
And it's like, in these, you know, ethnographies of, like, quote unquote traditional or just, you know, like, non-Western societies, like, I remember there was, like, a call out that one ethnographer was talking about how the people there don't complain that they don't get enough sleep. They complain that they get, like, too much sleep, because, like, their day is dictated by the actual, like, daylight available.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, they'll be awake and they'll be like, I really want to go do stuff, but it's still dark out. And
Right.
It's like, I got to just, like, chill and not get work done yet because it's too dark. It's not bright enough. But, like, I'm good on sleep, you know?
That reminds me of, like, yeah, when I bought my first house, and, you know, I was working the night shift, and this was before I found Seth, so I was, like, sleeping basically the first part of the day, and, like, I had yard work to do, but it was, like, getting to be late fall, and so I'm just, like, out there with, like,
Headlamps.
And my neighbors, I felt like they were, like, thought I was a lunatic, you know, like, I was just, like, doing some landscaping and wheelbarrowing, and, like, they're probably like, is he burying bodies or something? But it's like, this is my time when I'm awake. I need to do this.
Yeah, and you have the technology.
Yeah.
Society is just not caught up to you yet.
Just look how funny it is. But, like, I mean, it's getting dark at 7 right now. And, like, you know, 2 months ago, it's not uncommon for someone to be mowing their lawn at 9 at night. But, like, no one does the headlamp thing.
Oh, yeah. Mowing your lawn at night.
Yeah.
And have the cops calling you.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah.
What you said about dairy, first of all, I really disagree with that. I mean, people are different. Like,
Yeah.
if you live in certain places that don't have a long growing season, or where the soil isn't good enough to grow food, like I think England might be like, you have to find a way to convert grass into something edible, or you just starve to death.
Right.
And you do that by getting dairy from cows. Europeans are able to produce like lactase enzyme, so they're able to process lactose and eat dairy. But like in China, Asians are often really lactose intolerant because the soil in China doesn't really lend itself to grazing. That just doesn't. That's not what the climate is. So dairy basically is non-existent in our foods, like completely. You have like milk tea in Hong Kong, but that's because it was like a British colony. But like in China, I don't know of a single traditional Chinese food that includes dairy. No cheese, no milk.
That's true.
It's not. I really resent when people say it's not natural because like it is. Unless you think it's unnatural for any of us to live beyond the equator. Like okay, like we do evolve.
Yeah, and it doesn't take that much looking to see that the body has these extraordinary capabilities of providing for itself. Like I think the cliched or most pointed to example is like the Eskimo culture where they're just basically surviving on blubber.
Yeah.
Or, like, and somehow healthy and everything else.
And not vitamin D deficient despite being covered. All day.
Right.
I wanted to read this quote from a completely different book. It's Right Towards Health. Regarding food, Seth says, if you believe that the body is evil, the purest health food diet will or may do you little good at all. While if you have a healthy desire and respect for your physical body, a diet of TV dinners and even of fast foods may well keep you healthy and nourished.
Yeah.
It's all about your perception.
Well, I mean, part of Seth's main teaching is like linking, the psychological to the physical, and we overemphasize the physical. And if anyone's ever had like a health issue that you've tried to deal with like via nutrition, like, or you just like studied nutrition, like you realize how, what would be the word? It's just like, it's so amorphous. Like, and also just like living through enough like dietary fads. Like I remember in the 90s, everything was like fat free, and then like sugar became the bad guy. And, like I'm sure it's helpful for some people, but like just now we have diets that are like completely sugar free, like I'm not trying to say that's good or bad, but like we always just outline one thing as the bad guy, try to cut it all out, expect it to solve all of our issues, and never like try to, look at a different dimension of the problem, like beliefs.
Which is crazy because we do have studies documenting the effectiveness of the placebo method. But
every study seems to take that as an assumption, but no study is that curious about what's going on there.
Basically, like most of our studies do not control for beliefs.
Right, but having like the placebo part of the study kind of accepts it without being officially accepted. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's irony.
I think by definition it does control for beliefs, right?
Does it? Unless you're doing it completely blind, because the scientists are still also expecting their hypothesis to go one or the other way.
Well, yeah, but like, I guess the point is like, because you, Michael, were saying that like they talk about placebo all the time without like studying it directly. But like the reason they're talking about it all the time is because they're comparing the other thing they're studying to a placebo. Like they're saying like, we're going to put this thing against a placebo because a placebo is like effective to a certain degree, right?
Yes, but you're not controlling for the science. The people who are running the study have beliefs and expectations, and then the people who are doing the study, even if they're blind to whether or not they're given the placebo or not, they're still creating their reality according to their thoughts, beliefs, and expectations. And so they do think that the placebo is going to be just as powerful.
Right. And that's why you give one group a placebo, because they're getting something they think will be effective. And the other group that's getting whatever the medication or whatever is also getting something they think will be effective. And if the group that got the medicine does even better than the placebo group, then the medicine did something over and above the belief.
Who's to say that it's the scientists who didn't expect that one would do better than the other, manifesting that is the outcome?
Well, that's why you do blind tests. So the scientists also don't know which ones are which, right?
Even if it's double blind, you're still manifesting that.
They're setting up the experiment with the belief that, they have a hypothesis that this might work for this particular issue. So there's beliefs, even if it's blind to them during the study.
Right. Like how you get to an outcome that you're manifesting, the circumstances don't really matter. You can be completely blind to that, double, triple, quadruple blind. it'll still, like what Seth says is you still create your reality according to your thoughts, beliefs, and expectations. So even if the scientists are triple blind, they're still creating the final outcome of the paper that they're publishing, what the data is going to reflect.
Right.
Is what I mean.
I got that very thing explains, at least to me and my beliefs, the replicability problem.
Yeah,
Replicability.
I think so too.
Replicability.
Because you have all these different people with different beliefs trying to create this thing according to their own beliefs.
So it works for the initial ones that had this passionate belief, or maybe passionate belief that this would work. They publish it, give it to the world. Someone else says, well, it's science, it should work.
Yeah.
They run the experiment and it doesn't work or something.
They're not a powerful enough magician.
Yeah.
You need them to believe harder. It's like, I know you're replicating the exact steps that I did, but did you really think it was going to work?
And, they might have self-doubt in their ability to actually properly replicate it.
I just took my truck into the mechanic, and I always do this with mechanics too, where I look them in the eyes and I think, like, how powerful is your machine's soul?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to twist the wrench, but is the bolt going to stay there? Like, do you believe the bolt's going to stay there?
And how'd you feel about this person? Or
I have faith.
yeah,
He seemed like he knew what he was doing. What he was describing seemed a little hokey, but I believe in him.
I like it.
This man was telling me, he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna wrap a strap around the whole thing and just like tighten it all in there. It'll be fine. They make aftermarket parts, but I figured I would just buy you something cheap and stick it on there.
Because your vehicle is like from the 90s.
It's pretty old. Yeah. So a lot of the parts that you would normally get cannot attach. They're rusted out.
What kind of vehicle is it?
It's a Ford Ranger.
Wow.
Yeah. It's an old one. We were talking about getting me collector plates for it.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost old enough now.
That reminds me of somewhere Seth talks about like how someone who is naturally a healer could have the profession of a mechanic, and just like an interaction, like that human interaction that you're talking about, can somehow like I don't think he went into depth, but it kind of made sense the way he explained it, that like they can actually like touch and have positive impact on people's lives just by like having this, like, in our minds, what would be a completely different department.
Mm-hmm. They can have like a compassionate, empathetic, interaction with a complex system. They're just not one that's a human body, a different one.
And then there's another part where Rob and Jane are potentially having car issues, and there's like something about her like mindset that like helps it along.
Yeah.
This is where you bring up this, like, in the Seth book club that we have, and somebody usually, like, remembers it, or someone's there to, like, quickly, like,
Mark will
look
always
it up.
look it up.
Yeah. Someday when we're a big, huge podcast, we'll hire Mark to look things up. That's our show, but fear not, the never-ending conversation continues next week. If you're enjoying the show, please be so kind as to subscribe, like, rate, and review, and if you're feeling frisky, tell a friend. Contact us at implicatingthereal@gmail.com. You can support the show at patreon.com/implicatingthereal. We are doing our best, but whatever support you can lend helps us appreciably. We are not affiliated with the publishers or proprietors, but we encourage you to get the books. You can follow along as we endeavor to dive deep into the Sethian worldview, and there's really nothing like cultivating your own relationship with the material. Until next week, we wish you a fun good evening.